Record. Good morning. It's Wednesday, April the 28th, and this is The Drill. I'm Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, and welcoming all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. Today we've got the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare, and then Chapter 2 of the book, Power Hungry. April 28th, cast out the spirits of affliction and sorrow. My child, I will keep you in perfect peace if your mind is stayed on me. Trust in me and seek after me. I've heard the sighing of your spirit, and I know when your heart pants and your strength fails you. Place your hope in me, for I will cast out the spirits of affliction and sorrow from your life. Do not be conformed to the cares and problems of this world, but be transformed by renewing your mind in me, that you may prove my good and acceptable and perfect will for you. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind as you put on the new man of true righteousness and holiness. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. Rest your hope fully in the grace of my Son, Jesus Christ. Prayer Declaration. Father, in your power I will strip all power from evil spirits that would oppress me. I rebuke and cast out all spirits of poverty. In the name of Jesus, I rebuke all spirits of madness and confusion that would attempt to oppress my mind. Through your power I rebuke and cast out all spirits of affliction and sorrow that would seek to bring me low. The enemy will not take my inheritance through oppression. Amen. And so, let's see, we're going to go to, here it is, Power Hungry. There it is, Chapter 2, Happy Talk. And when we left this, I had been reading Chapter 1, and it was basically talking about how what it is we really want as consumers worldwide is power. Energy is secondary. He makes the point that we could and would use jelly beans in our gas tanks if it would give us the power to do what we need. So the issue is going to be power. He's also made the point in the introduction about the four imperatives of energy. And so he did talk a little bit about that as well. And Chapter 2 is now Happy Talk. The television news industry has a great term. Happy Talk. Producers work to make sure that every second of TV airtime is filled with scripted content. But, try as they might, they often find themselves with several seconds of unfilled airtime that must be made to look purposeful. On some occasions, in an effort to make their newsreaders appear more likable to viewers, TV producers may ask the talking heads to engage in some friendly banter to fulfill the airtime between the news segments and commercial breaks. These chummy bits of patter are called, you guessed it, Happy Talk. Over the past few years, Americans have been inundated with energy happy talk, and it has come from personalities ranging from Dallas billionaire T-Bone Pickens and former Vice President Al Gore to New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman and media darling Amory Lovins, the chairman and chief scientist at the Rocky Mountain Institute, a Colorado-based think tank. For Pickens, the boogeyman to be slain is foreign oil. For Gore, the villain is carbon dioxide. And while the sin to be cured varies with the preacher, the message of deliverance is largely the same. Repent. Give up those evil hydrocarbons and embrace the virtues of renewable energy before you face the eternal damnations of foreign oil, global warming, and a carbon footprint that's bigger than Boone Pickens' ego. Lovins is among the most quoted purveyors of energy happy talk. In 2007, he wrote a short piece called, quote, Saving the Climate for Fun and Profit, unquote, in which he said that curing carbon dioxide emissions or curbing will not cost you extra. It will save you money because saving fuel costs less than buying fuel. In 2008, he claimed that the issues of climate change, oil dependence, and the spread of nuclear weapons go away if we just use energy in a way that saves money. And since that transition is not costly but profitable, It can actually be led by business. Venture capitalist Vinod Khosla is another veteran happy talker. In May 2006, Khosla claimed that making motor fuel out of cellulose was, quote, brain dead simple to do, unquote, and that commercial production of cellulosic ethanol was, quote, just around the corner, unquote. 10 months later, Khosla was once again hyping cellulosic ethanol, saying that the biofuels could completely replace oil for transportation and that cellulosic ethanol would be cost competitive with corn ethanol production by 2009. Alas, Khosla's crystal ball turned out to be somewhat cloudy. By late 2009, despite hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital investment in cellulosic ethanol companies, not one of these efforts had been successful in producing significant quantities of fuel for commercial use. In July 2008, Al Gore, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, declared that the United States should, quote, commit to producing 100% of our electricity from renewable energy and truly clean carbon-free sources within 10 years, unquote. 4 months later, in an op-ed in the New York Times, Gore said the nation must replace, quote, dangerous and expensive carbon-based fuels with 21st century technologies that use fuel that is free forever, the sun, the wind, and the natural heat of the earth, unquote. About that same time, Gore, along with a coalition of environmental groups called the Alliance for Climate Protection, launched a $300 million media campaign designed to stop global climate change. That campaign is backed by a number of websites. By early 2009, more than 2 million people had joined and had agreed to the statement, quote, I want to repower America with 100% clean electricity within 10 years, unquote. The grassroots partners behind the effort include the National Audubon Society, the Evangelical Environmental Network, and other groups. And then there's Pickens. The Dallas-based energy mogul is one of the long line of super wealthy Texans endowed with a messiah complex who have luxuriated in the national limelight by promising to deliver, pick one or more of the following, better football, better basketball, a better president, better football, and better energy policy. On July 4, 2008, Pickens launched a $58 million media campaign aimed at promoting the Pickens Plan. The campaign launch included a barrage of TV ads starring the Texas energy baron, who begins the pitch with a syrupy drawl. I've been an oil man all my life. The centerpiece of the Pickens Plan: by generating electricity from wind and solar and conserving the electricity we have, we will be able to shift our use to natural gas to where it can lower our need for foreign oil. The public loves the idea of renewable energy. On November 19, 2008, an organization released a poll of number 21,000 people from 21 nations. The findings: 77% of respondents believe that the country should emphasize more use of solar and wind energy. In December 2008, the League of Conservative Voters sent out an email asking voters to sign a petition that was to be sent to President-elect Barack Obama. It was a who's who of American environmental groups, and the petition told Obama that it is time to repower, refuel, and rebuild America. In April 2009, during the telecast of the Miss USA pageant, the show's MC, Billy Bush, and co-host Nadine Velasquez declared that the silicone and swimsuit soiree was, in fact, environmentally friendly and was therefore part of NBC's initiative Green is Universal. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Stephen Chu, who now serves as the U.S. Secretary of Energy, has made his own glib pronouncements. In mid-2009, Chu appeared on a television show and said, "We want energy, but we want it carbon-free." Carbon-free energy appears to be such a selling concept that even pimps have begun hawking it. In 2005, Heidi Fleiss, that she announced that she was planning to open a stud farm in Nevada that would cater to female customers. But in 2009, Fleiss announced that she had dropped plans for the bordello and was instead focusing her talents on alternative energy. That's where the money is, she said. That's the wave of the future. From Gore to Chu and Miss USA and the Hollywood Madam, Americans are being carpet-bombed with energy happy talk. And that happy talk has contributed to a widespread sense of guilt. Here's an exercise. The next time you hear someone say, we are addicted to oil or we are addicted to coal, try this. Substitute the word prosperity for oil or coal. I don't offer the idea to be flippant, but rather to point out just how disconnected America's rhetoric about energy is from the perspective of the 2 to 3 billion people on the planet who live in dire energy poverty. And at the same time that many of these people are still relying on biomass, such as wood, straw, or dung, for their cooking needs and spending large chunks of their time and labor procuring those fuels every day. Most Americans live in a world of energy abundance with access to cheap fuels that their counterparts in places like South Africa, Sudan, Laos, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and Pakistan can only dream of. While most of us certainly appreciate the many blessings of prosperity, there's a growing sense that U.S. citizens should sign up for Jenny Craig or an Atkins diet for gasoline and electricity. Conflating energy use with addiction has facilitated a growing sense of anxiety in Americans. Add in fears about global warming, along with the claims about energy shortages and terrorism, and that guilt becomes ever more easily exploitable by politicians, pundits, and erstwhile capitalists looking to suckle at the federal teat. In mid-2009, a Canadian energy analyst, Peter Turkzanian, published a book called The End of Energy Obesity that tapped into these themes of guilt and addiction. Billions of people would dearly love to be tyrannized by oil in exactly the same way most Americans are. Consider India, a country of 1.1 billion people, where the average resident consumes about 0.11 gallons of oil per day. The average American consumes about 24 times as much. And yet, over the past years, many Americans have become increasingly ambivalent about their energy use. In some circles, people who drive SUVs are subjected to ridicule. Conversely, fuel-efficient cars such as the Toyota Prius confer on their drivers a certain amount of environmental cachet, or eco-bling. The growing Western obsession with carbon dioxide has even led some consumers to buy carbon credits, a type of get-out-of-jail-free card, an environmental indulgence that theoretically allows them to offset a certain amount of the carbon dioxide they're responsible for emitting. Along with carbon credits, Americans have been barraged with claims about the desirability of being carbon neutral. It's not just the Greens and the Democrats. One of the history's most prolific purveyors of indulgences, the Roman Catholic Church, has begun equating carbon dioxide emissions with sin. The Times quoted a Vatican official, Monsignor Melchor Sanchez de Toca Alameda, who averred that buying carbon credits was akin to penance. It's interesting to ponder what Abraham Maslow, the American psychologist, might have thought of all this. Maslow originated the idea of the hierarchy of needs, the concept that humans, as they increasingly satisfy their physiological needs, food, water, sleep, clothing, shelter, sex, and so on, begin seeking to fulfill more complex needs such as love, esteem, and self-actualization. An example, a few months ago, a friend of mine, a well-compensated medical doctor, bought a large Toyota SUV. The nearly 3-ton behemoth was equipped with a 381 horsepower engine, DVD player, leather seats, etc. While escorting me on a trek around the perimeter of the vehicle, the physician admitted to some feelings of guilt about his new wheels, and yet the mere act of sharing those pangs of inequity appeared to assuage some of his feeling of environmental sinfulness. The disconnect between America's energy use and its guilt over that energy use is even being featured in an ad campaign sponsored by, get this, one of the world's biggest energy companies. That's right, California-based Chevron has been running a campaign called Will You Join Us? One of the ads says, I will leave the car at home more. Another, I will finally get a programmable thermostat. I will use less energy. Pardon my insolence, but how many people in Uganda, Cambodia, or Peru wake up in the morning and declare, by golly, I'm going to use less energy today? Not many, I'd wager. And yet this notion of guilt combined with rhetoric about addiction and the idea of using less has become a powerful theme in American politics. Furthermore, consider Chevron's corporate strategy. It's advising its customers to use less of the stuff it sells. Now, some of Chevron's motivation for its ad campaign may be that it wants to soften the company's image. Thus, along with their feelings of guilt, Americans are angry at the companies that provide them with the energy they require. If the Zogby poll were an election, it would have been a landslide. Perhaps this fear is understandable. Americans are fearful about energy because of the lingering images of the 1973 Arab oil embargo and the 79 oil price shock. Politicians frequently use those events to stoke the fear that the United States could somehow be cut off from the global oil market. The drumbeat of fear abounds in discussions about global warming. Although guilt, anger, and fear are key elements of Americans' gullibility when it comes to energy matters, the most important factor is ignorance. Most people simply don't understand how energy and power are produced. In 2007, I interviewed Vaclav Smil about energy issues. I asked him why Americans are so easily swayed about energy matters. His response: scientific illiteracy and innumeracy. Without any physical, chemical, and biological fundamentals, and with equally poor understanding of basic economic forces, it is no wonder that people will believe anything. Verifying Smil's claim is all too easy. In July 2009, the Pew Research Center for the People and the Press released the results of a survey of 2,000 adult Americans regarding science issues. Those findings shouldn't be surprising. Ignorance of the sciences and the natural world has plagued the world for centuries. Let's see here. Indeed, though most moderately cultured people will be familiar with A Comedy of Errors or The Merchant of Venice, the laws of thermodynamics are considered by many of these same people to be the domain of nerds and wonks. Alas, the apathy towards science in America is matched, or perhaps even exceeded, by the lack of interest in mathematics. A 2008 study published by the American Mathematical Society put it bluntly: it is deemed uncool within the social context of USA middle and high schools to do mathematics for fun. This scientific illiteracy and innumeracy gets exacerbated in energy discussions by an equally thorny problem: the many different ways in which we measure units of energy. We use several sources of energy, and each is measured and sold in a mind-boggling variety of units. In order to move past the happy talk, as well as the guilt, fear, and ignorance, we have to address the issues of energy and power in a rigorous manner. Let's see. I'll walk you through in the future chapters through the physics and the terminology so that you can see why America's discussions about energy are so misguided. Power is what we want, and lots of it. So, and that was chapter 2 from Power Hungry by Robert Bryson. And the point that he makes in there that I think is absolutely fantastic is all those countries in the world that wish they had our problem of using, quote, too much energy, unquote. People in very poor countries. Haiti. He didn't even mention Haiti. But the Haitians would love to be able to say, gee, I need to use less energy today. And so by insisting that everybody cut their greenhouse gas emissions, they're not helping the poor, they're hurting the poor. And so that's a good talking point for conservatives when you're hearing your lefty friends and relatives talking about we need to go on a diet, an energy diet, or we need to get to renewables or something of that nature. Remind them that there's countries in the world that are still using dung, animal dung, as a way of for heat and for cooking their food. Okay, you and I couldn't even imagine anything like that. So that's the thing here. So you need to. A lot of this of what I'm doing with this book and in reading it to you this is between you and me. There's certain issues that are between conservatives, and there's other issues that I'm going to tell you. This is how to deal with the lefties in your life. But the first thing you need to do is be able to get your mind right and be able to be sane. Okay, I call it a sanity check. And so that's what this book is all about. It's about a sanity check. If you want tactics and techniques for how to deal with the left, then you really want to read books by Vox Day, who has several excellent books on social justice warriors, how they operate, and what to do about it. He has an excellent book that I just got, and it's about using the Alinsky tactics and techniques, the same ones that the social justice warriors use, against those same social justice warriors, which is an activity that I have called for in my podcast, where I've said, hey, I pointed out what Vox Day recognizes, that the Alinsky techniques are not left-wing. Okay, it says for radicals. It doesn't say left-wing radicals. Even if it did, doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, the reality of the matter is, every one of the tactics in Alinsky's book can be used by conservatives to defeat the left. Okay, but in this particular case, I'm reading this particular book to you because, again, it's a sanity check. So you understand what's real. Because sometimes you're listening to the news, you're listening to talk radio, whatever, and it seems like all it is just people throwing words at each other, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you start to get dizzy with it. You have to have a grasp of what's real. And then you can work on tactics and techniques and strategies and whatnot to defeat the left. Back in a minute. Thank you. So along the lines of tactics and techniques, one of the things where I find that people that call themselves conservatives, the various pundits, the Hugh Hewitts of the world, are wanting, again, is they're caught up in the cult of neutrality. They've been brainwashed to believe that being neutral somehow gives you, confers some sort of authority and makes what you say more worth listening to. And I say that's crap. That what you need to do is, if you are a conservative, is you need to act like one. You need to be biased. You need to be bringing out and promoting conservative ideas, issues, tactics, techniques. We're looking to defeat the left, and you can't defeat the left from a neutral standpoint. You have to. If we're conservative, it's because we believe that conservatism is what's best, not only for the country, but for the entire planet. Okay? And if we don't have that confidence, then we may as well just go home and shut up and not even bother to vote. Okay? Neutrality has no place. Sean Hannity is talking out of both sides of his mouth when on the one hand he is talking neutral, he's giving the facts and letting you decide, and on the other hand declaring that the left is tearing down this country, woe is me, that we're on the edge of a civil war, but he won't promote conservatism. One of the ways that you can do that, because I've been thinking about how you can promote that and doing it for not only for the Hugh Hewitts of the world, but for the rank and file conservatives, is by making demands. That's one of the things that the left is good at doing. Anytime a person on the right makes a mistake, a goof up, a gaffe, or whatever, then it's immediately followed up, because the left uses the Alinsky technique of constantly applying pressure. And so they will immediately follow up and say, we demand an apology, we demand a resignation, we demand an investigation. But nobody on the right does that. And illustrate that point, yesterday I heard a rumor, and it came from several different sources, so it seems like there might be something to it, that John Kerry, the American Secretary of State, was busy telling the Iranians about Israel's tactics and strategies in terms of fighting Iranians in Syria. That this information was classified, and that he was basically giving aid and comfort to our enemy, Iran, and that he was basically committing treason. That's what he was doing. Now, everybody that was talking about the story put it that way. And then they start asking questions, isn't this treason, or is this... and by the way, several senators have demanded his resignation. Well, what about you? What about Hugh Hewitt? Why isn't Hugh Hewitt demanding his resignation? Because Hugh Hewitt is caught up in the cult of neutrality. He's a zero. That's the way he looks at himself. I'm a zero. I don't count. I don't matter. I don't have any opinions. I don't have any ideas. I just look at what's going on and report. He's presenting himself as some sort of a reporter. Well, that's not going to cut it. Okay, we have to be biased and be biased in favor of the truth, be biased in favor of conservatism, because conservatism is realistic and it's all about the truth. So, Hugh Hewitt and of the world, and again, you and I as rank and file conservatives, need to demand. When you're talking to your buddies or friends, say, tell them, John Kerry needs to resign. He needs to resign right now. Furthermore, he needs to be arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned for treason. If he's convicted, you could even go so far as to say if he's convicted of treason, he needs to get the death penalty. Okay, because he's definitely putting our military in jeopardy by running around, blurting out highly classified information to our enemies. It's unbelievably self-destructive, and it's got to stop. But that's the kind of thing that we need to do. Every time somebody on the left screws up, like Mr. Kerry has done, you got to make the demands. Somebody approached yesterday the administration's mouthpiece and asked that mouthpiece about Kerry and what the administration has to say about it. Well, we don't comment on leaked sources or whatever. What kind of crap is that? What kind of crap is the question? Shouldn't the people that are supposed to be journalists, shouldn't they be demanding? Shouldn't they be asking questions more along the lines of, shouldn't the Secretary of State step down? Surely the Secretary of State is not acting in the best interest of the United States. Shouldn't he step down? Shouldn't he resign? Okay? And that's the thing where, again, you and I can step in and tweet about it. Tweet to John Kerry, we demand your resignation. Tweet to the administration, we demand John Kerry's resignation. Tweet to everybody and tell them this is outrageous, it's got to stop, and we demand his resignation, we demand his prosecution, we demand his arrest, and if he is successfully convicted, we demand that he be imprisoned or put to death. Okay, if we're going to be conservative, truly conservative, we have to act like it. We have to have confidence in our conservatism and confidence that this is what's best for us, for the country, and for the world at large, and act that way. Promote it. And that's another reason why I'm reading that from that book about oil. It's not enough to just try to be on the defensive about wind farms. Okay. T. Boone Pickens said, we need renewable energy like wind farms. Well, we found out what a disaster that was when there was a cold snap that came down from Canada, and all of a sudden Texas is plunged into near zero temperatures. All the windmills stopped running. They froze up. What happened to everybody's energy? Blackout. Okay, your refrigerator no longer works. Every piece of food that you've got in that refrigerator, you're going to have to throw out. Hundreds of dollars worth. Is T. Boone Pickens going to pick up the tab for that? No, you didn't hear from T. Boone Pickens then, did you? You didn't hear him say, I'm sorry. Okay. And again, this is about making the presumption, as much as anything else, making the presumption for the status quo. We have something, it works, there's no reason to change. And the burden of proof is on the left. Prove it. But, beyond that, we need to say, instead of, we can't switch because it's too expensive, or we can't switch because there's not enough room to put up windmills. It's all very weak. What we need to say is, we're going to stick with oil, coal, and natural gas because it is the best source of power for everybody on the planet. Those are the things that will lift people out of poverty. That will enable people to eat, to quit starving. Okay, that's a much more powerful argument. The left is not going to be able to deal with that. Back in a minute. Thank you. That brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, be smart and be beautiful and be honest. And remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.